Shall we wait for 1 minute to let folks join? Sam, let's wait for 1 minute to let folks join
Sure.
and then we can start. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we can start now. So, hello everyone. Welcome to this session on InfluxDB, an open source time series database and its Python client. So, the session is presented by Sayam Pathak. Sayam is working as a director of technical evangelism at Civo with a focus on defining the Civo cloud platform for simplifying Kubernetes and making it accessible for developers. So, yeah, a, a small recommendation for all of the participants. If you have any questions, please post on the Q&A section. So at last, if we can find some time, we can pose it to the speaker. If not, you can maybe connect with him on the launch or maybe Zulip. So I think he'll be giving his details too. So you can maybe connect with him. So yeah, handing over to Sam.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction and welcome everyone to PyConf and my session on InfluxDB 2.0 and its Python client. So today what we'll discuss is on a very high level introduction. Oops. What we'll discuss is introduction to time series, what actually is time series and time series database. Then what is InfluxDB 2.0, it's some of its architecture, and then why Kubernetes monitoring. So why we need to monitor Kubernetes and how we can leverage Influx and monitoring Kubernetes. And but the demo is not about monitoring Kubernetes. But just I wanted to bring this because we'll be installing Influx DB on Kubernetes. So you should be having some knowledge on it. And then the demo. So in the demo, we will be having, we'll be basically writing to InfluxDB using the Python client, and everything is there in the Git repo. So after the session, you should be able to do the exact same demo without any issues. And if you have, then there are a lot of ways to get connected with me, which I'll share shortly. So my name is Sayam Pathak and I'm Director of Technical Evangelism at Civo. My Twitter handler is @Sayam Pathak, so you can follow me or don't follow me, just see the updates that I do on the latest cloud native tech. I'm CNCF ambassador, I'm Docker community leader and Influx Ace, and just recently I won the Influx Community Award 2020. And I run my own YouTube channel where I talk about latest in cloud native tech with the experts on different topics. And I started a Discord and Telegram channel coincidentally today, so you can join them as well. I'll post all the links maybe in the launch or whatever is the platform to reach you out, or you can reach me out on any of these platforms. So moving on, let's start. So basically, the first question that we'll try to answer over here is, what is time series data? So any data or any measurements measured over a period of time is time series data. So you can take an example of say financial analysis or your ECG report or any sort of sensor. So you have Raspberry Pi or monitoring or your heating sensor over there, and heating sensor is continuously sending the time series, generating the time series data. So any data which is daily, hourly, weekly, actually it can go on. It can be monthly, then yearly, then 6 yearly, and all that stuff. So like the weather reports that you see, they are also time series. All the network logs. So if you're familiar with Jaeger tracing, so all the tracing that can be done on one particular API request. Then all the medical devices, the vitals that are measured on, they can be generating time. They will be generating the time series data. And the app performance, very critical over there, how the application is performing over a certain period of time. It's very critical, the application performance. Financial analysis, I think told you. So all in all, if you see, time series data is everywhere, and it's just the hour of need. So if you see all the graphs, all the trends on the DB engines, so time series graph is actually growing and growing, because everything is getting smart. And for everything getting smart, there is time series data. So take example of the Apple Watch. It is generating data over the period of time. It will tell you your daily, weekly, hourly reports, how you are performing, how your heart rate is, and if anomalies are there, then those detections can be there. So basically, time series data, aggregating it and performing anomaly detection on it. So there are tons of things that are getting done over the time series data. Now, time series data can be regular and irregular. So you can have a per minute interval kind of data, like this particular metrics is generating data this per minute, on the per minute basis, and you are storing that. So that sort of data is kind of regular data. Then irregular data can be, say you have, for example, a log file. So a log file might not generate data on regular intervals. So you might have a log file that generates data maybe today, and in next 2 days, then in next 3 days, something like that. So those sort of things are called irregular kind of time series, but still they will be considered as time series database, because they are generating so anything that you can relate with a timestamp is a time series data. So at this particular moment, a file generated these logs, and now at this particular moment it generated this log. So that can so the predictions can be difficult on irregular time series data, but still that can be useful, maybe in just visualizing how the or mapping it to application performance. Like if there are errors in the logs, and then you can log them and see at what point of time the errors are coming, so you can have your application performance metrics generated based on that particular data. So like this, there are the time series data is there. Now time series, now I already told you, like the growth of time series data is tremendous, and it's rising and rising and rising. Now, another very good thing over here is TSDB, which is called time series database. Now, in order to analyze properly the time series data, there's also is the need of the time series database. Now, why the traditional databases cannot simply use the time series data and give you all the results that you want? There are different reasons of that, and a few of them will be discussing. So first, simple events are tracked, monitored, downsampled, and aggregated. So just make sure you understand this. So they are downsampled and they are aggregated. So when I talk about time series database, it means that the database is actually meant for managing, handling, downsampling, aggregating, and performing analysis on that time series data. So when you talk about RDBMS, or regular key value, basically the old traditional databases, they're not meant for these kind of data. They are not meant for having a tremendous amount of queries or per millisecond or nanosecond set of precision over a period of time, over a period of data. And also, like if you talk about having a huge amount of data that you want to retrieve very frequently, because you will be generating big graphs, and you will be having yearly graphs, you will be having monthly graphs. So when you talk about hitting those big queries in an efficient manner, so that is a time series data. And the time series database is basically created keeping this in mind, whereas the traditional databases, they were not created having these set of scenarios in mind. So I told you, like, all the data is time stamped, and so everything nowadays is having sensors. So all this data is handled by TSDBs. And yes, TSDB is not new. Everyone is actually using some sort of TSDB in one way or the another. If you go to dbengines.com, they have actually the list of all the time series databases. You can head over to the section over there, or if time permits, I'll just show you that. So in that particular section, if you see TSDBs, there will be a lot of databases, and even I have like a lot of good people working in TSDBs organizations, and people are working on making the efficiency better, handling the million. So there is a billion, there is a concept called a billion request. So basically it's over a billion time series data that you have to query, and what will be the response time of that. So those set of scenarios, when you have big targets like that, you cannot achieve that with a regular database. You have to have TSDB, and that too you have to efficiently keep on improving that. So like I told you, query over large period of time, it can only be handled by TSDBs. And life cycle management, this is very important. So in TSDB, what happens is we definitely store what you call nanosecond, then you have a millisecond, and then you have minutes, seconds, minutes, hours, monthly, weeks, daily, monthly, all these things. So there is a life cycle management that you can do. So there is a down sampling of data. You are generating tons of metrics per minute, which might not be useful when it's a day old. And when it's a day old, you might want to sample, down sample. When I say down sample, means you might want to just have a certain set of metrics out of that one day stored in a separate DB or a separate bucket. So what will happen is you have your one day data generated that is coming per nanosecond. That is fine for you. But when you go over a period of time, and if you want to query it over 6 months, it is huge. I mean, you can't even predict how much data it is. So there you have life cycle management that comes with the TSDBs. You can downsample the data, and you can make sure that you have the right set of data for right set of intervals of time. For yearly data, you can have less number of metrics. For daily data, you can have more number of metrics. For hourly data, you can have the all the metrics of nanoseconds. So like this, you can do the downsampling. Now, what is InfluxDB? So InfluxDB, we'll talk only about 2.0. So InfluxDB 2.0 is a single binary. A single binary will be coming with the tick stack. So the tick stack is famous for telegraph, influx, and capacitor, and chronograph. So chronograph and capacitor. So you have the tick stack. Earlier, just a very quick overview. Earlier, prior to 2.0, all these components were separate and they had to be installed separately. But as of 2.0, everything comes as a single binary. And it also comes with a Flux query language. So Influx Data has developed a query language called Flux, which can be used with most of the databases. And so the overall aim is to have single query language for getting the data, fetching the data, analyzing the data, predicting the data. So all the things can be done using Flux language, and you don't need to switch over to different languages to do different things. Like querying, you should do differently. Analysis, you should do with Python. All those things you should not be doing. So we can have everything done using Flux. I have 2 Flux videos already uploaded on my YouTube. I'll leave the link so that if you want to learn only Flux, you can get started over there. It has a InfluxDB 2.0 has a powerful client library support. Prior to this, mostly they were supported by community, but now Influx Data is supporting the client libraries. There are a lot of them: Go, Python, Ruby, all those things are there. Today we'll be focusing on Python. It has a feature-rich UI, so you can just directly get started by the UI, and all the administrative tasks, all the operator kind of stuff. You can directly start using the UI without having much of the learning curve over here. And it has something called templates. Now templates are something which are pre-generated dashboard for various scenarios. Now there have been people in the community who keep on contributing these templates, and the other folks who will be using InfluxDB, they can readily use these templates. So I mean, they have been very much taken as a like, people have been really appreciating these templates because these are really useful. So you have a predefined Docker template you can use, a predefined Kubernetes template that you can use. So all these things are there that are shipped with InfluxDB 2.0. On a very high level, the architecture means Telegraph is basically an agent for collecting, reporting metrics, events, logs, and traces. So you have more than 200 plugins from where you can scrape the data and send to InfluxDB, and you can run it on any of these. So InfluxDB, again, the powerful time series database to visualize, query the task engine. So it has metrics, logs, traces, and the client libraries that are supported, I already told you there. Okay, so there are 18 languages as of now that are supported, which is huge. Then you have your service discovery, client libraries, anomaly detection, machine learning, and user defined functions. So all these things can be done. So this is using the Flux query language, and it has direct integration with Grafana. I can show you that if the time permits, because I want the demo to be clean. Clean in the sense it might not work on the first try, but I just want to explain each and everything from the demo. Then the built-in alerting, so which is very good again. So all in all, InfluxDB comes as a package, and with the Telegraph. So Telegraph still exists on its own. So you can have Telegraph because Telegraph has been used, but is being used in the industry on an n number of projects, because in the Telegraph's outputs you can actually send the data to multiple DBs. So it's not only that it has been used for InfluxDB, but so Telegraph also is a very important component which is being maintained. Then you have Kubernetes metrics. So Kubernetes metrics is very important to have like anomaly detections on your cluster, the performance of your cluster, how your cluster is behaving, the resiliency of the clusters, and to find the what are the errors over the time, how good the platform is on the whole is for your application. So by default, there are a lot of metrics which are exposed for Kube API server, the node metrics, and you have Prometheus, and the kube state metrics, node endpoints, exporters, Kubernetes components. So all these metrics are there. So what happens is Prometheus is pulling these metrics. Now you have Telegraph. Now Telegraph has input. I mean, Telegraph can scrape metrics from Prometheus. So Telegraph will take all the metrics from Prometheus and it will push to InfluxDB. Now you can also have built-in templates to do that. Then the visualization can be either Grafana, and you can do the alerting, or the built-in. So this diagram I made long time back. So you can also use the direct built-in UI of InfluxDB and do the alerting, built-in alerting over there using the Flux query language. And that's pretty much it for the slides that I have. Now let's move on to the demo portion. Yeah, so what I have is, so this is a repository, GitHub Sayam1814/PyConf, and I will be creating a cluster. So I should have, okay, what we'll do is, so we'll be creating a Kubernetes cluster K3s using CO. So I'll quickly create the cluster so that, yeah, so it is creating a 3-node cluster. And now let's go through the code. In the meanwhile, it gets created. Now here, what I have is, so first let's go through the source. Now InfluxDB comes with a Python client. Sorry, this is what your Python client is. So you have your Python client import. So you have done the imports, and then these are some of the other fields that we'll be using. So first is, we create a client object. So we have a client, InfluxDB client. We pass the URL. Now URL will be the Influx host where actually the Influx is running. And why I have given it as curly braces, because this will be coming as an environment variable, and I will be using config map for that. So I will tell you like how it is getting mapped over there. Then the token. So the authentication in InfluxDB happens to the token. So every time when I create the cluster and I install InfluxDB, yes, there will be a new token. So I have to have a token, and I'll be taking it from a secret. So we'll be creating a Kubernetes secret as well. Next is the write API. Now we have the client, and the client has something called write API. So in the write API, we'll be using, so we have created a write API, and write API is having the method called write, where we pass the bucket, org, and the point. And point is the actual metrics that we are generating. So we are creating a mem, and we are creating a tag with the host, and we are getting the host name with the field use percentage, and with date time, the precision. Actually, I could have directly use percentage also. We can give dynamic. Yeah, for now let's keep it this. I'll make it dynamic, and I'll push the changes over here. No issues in that. So this will be keep on running. So this is a schedule that I have done. So it will be keep on running this particular program again and again in the in the container. So to make it as to Dockerize it, I just have a from Python Alpine, and then I'm just installing all the required modules, and I'm running the file. So that's pretty much easy source code. Now let's see how we'll be deploying it. So the first is influx. So first is the influx. So we create the namespace, we create the influx stateful set, and we use the influx image, then the container port, and we also create a persistent volume claim for the data persistence. And since we are using the K3s, managed K3s, so it comes with a local path provisioner by default. So the PV will automatically be created, and then we create the cluster IP service. Now, when we create the cluster IP service, we have something called ingress. So we'll be using this particular service, and we'll be creating the ingress. Now, before creating the ingress, we have to change the cluster ID, because every time I create a new cluster in Civo, I get a new cluster ID, and that's obvious. So I should edit this field. So rest everything we can deploy readily, but this particular file we have to change. And so this is the daemon set. So basically the whole goal over here is, suppose I want a specific file, or I want a specific task that I have done. Maybe let's say I'm capturing a certain set of metrics from the host, from the node, in a Python file. So, and I want that particular metrics to be sent to influx. So as of now here in the source, we have just taken a random memory thing, but we can actually have like the utilization of some particular thing. Or if I run a process, then what happens in that particular scenario. You have maybe pass, fail, something like that. So something that you want to actually monitor on the host, which are not by default present as a Telegraph template or things like that. So that particular thing we'll be using with the container is this. And so this is a daemon set. Daemon set means it will run on all the nodes. So from all the nodes, it will be sending metrics every 5 seconds to InfluxDB using this particular image. And it is using two things. One is the token. So whatever I showed you in the code, so it is taking the environment variable. So this will be two envs that I have created token, which will create a secret, and the token will be taken from that, and the host which will be taken from the config map. So all in all, this is what the deployment of the config file looks like. I have mentioned the steps already, how to do that. And let's see if our cluster is ready and we can start. Let me do a refresh. Okay, it's still getting ready. Yeah, it's installing, so just give it a second. Only the kube config file is getting generating, so it's just finishing up. Yeah, actually we should have created this just at the beginning, so that we don't have to wait. So these are some of the links also, like what is influx data, so you can go to influx data. What is a time series database, so everything I explained is from here. And this is what I was telling about the DB engines and a lot of time series databases that are there with the rankings. And so this is actually updated one, I believe. So it's December 2020 rankings. And then what is time series data? So all the examples that I gave, they are from here. What is time series data? And this is what is the architecture looks like of influx, that is from here. So let's just see if we have the cluster ready. Or what we'll do is, I'll delete my previous cluster and I'll create a new one. It should not take much time actually. Yeah. Now let's create a new cluster. And let's create it. So this happens in live demo, so you have to wait for a few seconds. I'll make the demo quick. Anyways, all the files I have explained you, so it should not be a big problem once the cluster is ready. So in meanwhile, do we have any questions? We can take that up quickly if we have.
Yes, so we have two questions. One is, Shyam, would you like to share the GitHub link to try out in my local machine?
Definitely, definitely. So where do I share it? I share in
So
the
you can
chat.
share in the session feed. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So the next question is, Grafana can plot graphs from data from Prometheus. What advantage will we get by adding extra Telegraph and InfluxDB?
So see, Telegraph. You have Grafana, you have Prometheus. Prometheus can take all the metrics from Kubernetes. But in general, what happens is, like I told you, Telegraph has over 200 plugins. So Prometheus cannot monitor everything itself. Second thing, Prometheus is not very much well efficient for long-term storage metrics. So that's where your influx come in. And thirdly, you can readily use, so you don't have to make changes. So you can readily use the Prometheus metrics and send them to influx and view them in Grafana. So your Grafana remains same, your Prometheus remains same. You are adding Telegraph for extra sort of monitoring from various resources, like the node metrics, CPU, memory, and all the GPU, anything that is there. So Telegraph plugins. I'm not just telling like this. So Telegraph plugins are actually there. So if you see the input, so you can see the number of plugins they have. So you have, you have Tomcat plugin, you have your system plugin, syslog, you have Docker plugin, and anything that you can think of, there's a plugin. If not, then people are creating the pull request. You can see the number of activity that is getting happened over there. So just let me see if the clusters, any of the cluster is ready. I would be happy with that. Unfortunately, none of the cluster is getting ready.
Uh, we have 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Then let me do something. I actually didn't have a backup plan, but we will create a backup plan by doing what? Okay. So let me just. Oh, this demo is cool, okay? I'm telling you. If you miss this, then no fun. Okay, so my K3s cluster is there, and let me clone the repository real quick. Copy. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, the cluster is ready. Here and kubectl get nodes, and then you have git clone, and then we do a cd into pyconf and into the deploy folder. I just need to deploy the influx first. So kubectl apply -f influx, and let's do a kubectl get nodes. I'll clear out the screen so that you can see the kubectl get nodes. Yes, come on. Sorry, not the nodes. Why do I want get pods? Okay. Oh, it's not in the namespace. It's in InfluxDB. Okay, so we have our pod running, which is perfect. And now let's do a kubectl get svc. It's not that much we have to do. So what we'll do is kubectl edit svc influxdb and influxdb, and what we'll do is we'll make it as node port. Node port. now we are all set. So let's go here and let's do a kubectl get svc-a, and we should be having a node port which is 32758. Let's copy this, and our influx should be up and running on this port. Yes, our InfluxDB is up and running. Okay, so the backup plan has worked, and we'll give the username, password, very quick, and then let's give a test org. So everything happens in a bucket. So I'll just quickly show you what you have to do now. So go to advanced, and we have the sources. So in the sources, you have the client libraries. So we choose Python, and this is the token that we are having. So we choose the token from here, and then we create the secret, and the secret creation is also mentioned over here. So we'll create the secret.
Time is up. Sorry.
Yeah, just 1 minute if possible, you can give me. I'll just finish.
Yes.
I'm aware that the time is over. Just give me a minute. It's almost done.
I think you copied. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the secret is created, and now we'll create the config map, and we'll create the config map because we need the host. So we'll go over here. There it is. Yeah, this one. So we'll create this, and the host will be whatever we have mentioned over here till this thing, and that should be it. I think we should be good with HTTPS. That is the only thing that I'm worried about. So now kubectl apply the daemon set. It's not there. Oh, apply -f. That's why. Yeah, so we are done with our creation of all the things. So if the container gets created and running, means everything is running. So it's running. We go here, we go to the explore, we go to test, we have the memory, and we have the used percentage over here. Let's submit this, and you see the data. Boom. So this will be running on all the hosts. So it's a daemon set. So you will be getting the data from all the hosts. So like this, you can run your InfluxDB demo. So I have completed the demo. I wanted to do on different, but the backup plan worked really well. So like this, so this particular demo you can run anywhere. So feel free to try it out. Let me know if any questions. And I'm above time, but I have completed the demo. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for the insightful talk. So if anyone has questions, maybe Sam will be available on the launch area or Zulip. So maybe he can, you can try out the demo. So he has shared the link too. So thank you all for attending. See you.
Thank you all. Bye.